Welcome to Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness with your hosts Chris Noble and Bill Paratzman. In today's episode, we give you how-to for creating your own therapeutic healing music experience, whether that is to support a plant medicine journey, an inspirational creative endeavor, or assist with a necessary transformational moment in your life. We preview this with a few personal anecdotes around the creative and spiritual aspects of whole plant medicine, responsible use, and the amazing research being done around non-magic mushrooms. The core of the episode is a deep dive into how we, as musicians, use our music personally to give ourselves holistic care. Once you've heard this episode, you'll have a new understanding of how to use the music you love more skillfully. We'll be talking about all that and much, much more, as always, in these open conversations here on Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness. There was an event in LA last weekend called Music as Medicine, and they had four of the top psychedelic music composers there. John Hopkins.
John Hopkins?
Yep,
Nice.
yep. You knew you'd relate to that. And three others, and they did like a live thing where these guys premiered their albums, and there were people, you could lie on the floor in whatever state of mind you wanted to be. And it was a great thing. It was put on by a company from Canada who's out there building pods for psychedelic use.
Wow.
So their idea is, you go through their storefront, you register, check in, and you get hours in a pod with a playlist and whatever substance you brought with you, I guess. Although I suppose in Canada that means magic mushrooms. And they're doing some great work. I should put that in the show notes, or at least get it back to you. And maybe I should start this over again because this has nothing to do with what we want to talk about. But
I don't know, to be honest, because I think I would want to hear this if I was listening to this show.
Yeah,
you
it's
listeners,
pretty cool.
Let us know if this is not at all what we're really going to be talking about today. But I think Bill's on to some really great information here because before, and just so for those listening, we are going to talk about how to create your own therapeutic music experience in this episode. But I was talking to maybe a month ago to a therapist in Oregon, and she's a part of the first wave of therapists getting trained officially in psilocybin assisted therapy. And so I was sending her some of my music, my YouTube channel with all the 432 hertz stuff and the binaural beats and everything like that. And so she's going to start using that with her patients, with and without the psilocybin therapy. But I'm really curious to see how this continues to evolve. What you just said there is I didn't hear it, but that's mind-blowing.
Isn't that amazing to me?
That's so cool.
And, I get it. So there's like a continuum here of people who just want to do mushrooms on their own, with whatever thing they want. And then there's the sort of protocol that's coming out of Johns Hopkins and the research studies, with the specific music list. And this is what happens at hour one. This is what you have to do as a facilitator. Here are the rules. It's really structured. And so somewhere in between all of that are the rest of us. And that ranges from everything from sort of a spiritual religious use to a completely clinical therapeutic use to
recreational,
which I'm not a fan of that with psilocybin, but I understand in other areas, we've been using MDMA forever and raves.
Yeah.
And so there are places where recreational use does make sense.
I would say for me, with my experience with recreational, which has been very mixed, certainly, and I would say that psilocybin is one of the ones that I'm the most hesitant to use recreationally. But when I've had success and had really wonderful experiences, has usually been with creating something, whether it's music or painting, things like that. And it is very therapeutic, but I wouldn't say it was done a therapeutic way. It was done very recreationally. It was done for fun. Just done with no real goal in mind, just to kind of explore. So that's been nice, especially if you're in a safe, comfortable environment. I definitely recommend that for people. Painting, actually, and this is coming from a musician here, but I would say painting is just mind-blowing when you're on mushrooms. It's so fun, and your inner child is just running the show, and it's you do feel like you're in kindergarten in paint class all over again, and this idea of having to be a painter goes well out of your brain, and you're just creating cool textures. It's really fun.
I'd love to share some more detail on that because I've, through observation, had a lot of experience watching painters who are drunk create stuff. And it's true what Chris is saying, people, because when you whatever you do to remove the filters, right?
Yeah.
reduce the inhibitions, and not in a bad way, not in a way that offends your boundaries or whatever, but in a way that just releases you to connect more deeply with the inner child or the intuition or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
God, whatever it is. That's a good thing, and I've experienced that myself. I like to play in the park, right? So I haul the whole keyboard and amp and stuff and battery out
awesome.
there, and I have a limited amount of time because the battery only lasts so long. But I decided one day to also take a vape, and before I started playing, it didn't get like completely, totally blasted high, but I got like loose.
Nice.
And it was so easy to play that day, and things happened that I wish I'd recorded. So
the THC component, if you're talking about the vape specifically,
yes, cannabis.
Yeah, so the THC component I've really come to realize is the THC specifically. Now we're not talking CBD. CBD is great for a lot of other things, but the THC is truly the spiritual component of cannabis. And what I mean even more by that is it really opens up the right brain a lot. And that's why, cannabis and music or any art form are a beautiful synthesis. I mean, they just go together so damn well. That's why I can probably never stop smoking cannabis and writing music. I don't do it all the time, but man, when I do, you really, like you said, you go places you would never have expected. Inhibition's gone. You're very open, and you just let in these amazing ideas that do come in, especially when you've got that not too high either. You don't want to go too much.
Yeah, you don't want to go too far.
It's that happy balance that you can, and it's almost done now when I smoke, especially if I'm collaborating with another artist, and we'll actually do a little mini ceremony before we create together, and we'll get really intentional. We'll light it up, take a couple of puffs, usually not even finished, usually the full joint or vape, and then get right into it. And oh man, it is fun. It's really fun.
Fun is definitely the word, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just the definition of fun.
Yeah, I've never experienced any of the downside of sort of paranoia or overthinking stuff that happens on some sativas for me. But in that sweet spot, it's really sweet.
And one more. I know we're going to get into our other topics soon, but you're giving me so many ideas here because for the listeners, and I got to talk to this company one day because I keep advocating for this particular strand. It's my all-time favorite strand of cannabis. It's called Mango Haze, and the reason why is because it's the best split of CBD and THC I've been able to come across, and it's almost a 50-50 split. THC, CBD, and it's not a small dose, but it's not a high dose. It's this beautiful middle kind of amount. I think it's like 20 milligrams of THC and like 17 milligrams CBD. For reference, most of the pre-rolls or most of the cannabis that you'll buy at a dispensary, we're talking, and I mean like 99.9% of them have about 1% CBD to 0% CBD in them. Most of them, almost all of them. I mean, if you're going to get a bit higher, you're talking 3-4%. That's it. This is like 17. Or not percent, I'm sorry, talking milligrams. So this is 17. This is way higher CBD count. And all my friends that are like, oh, I get really anxious when I smoke. I'm like, great, try this one. Because the reason we get anxious is more on the THC side. But when we've got a high dose of CBD, oh my God, it balances it out beautifully. Yeah. And so because CBD helps reduce anxiety, you're not really going to get any from smoking that, but then you'll get a little of the THC. So your right brain opens up, you get more of the spiritual aspects of it, but then you get the CBD, like your muscles feel better. You get that relaxing feeling. You feel a bit more euphoric, and it's like my go to. I almost don't smoke anything else anymore. Mango Haze. And company's called Color.
Now that we've managed to, divulge the actual component, I'm sure somebody's going to patent that strain, and then we won't be able to get it anymore.
Yeah. And then that gets into a whole other thing with like organic cannabis, because now that there's so much getting grown now, there's a lot of GMOs, just like with our food. So now we've got to go down the same avenue as we do with our food, which is fine, but it's something to be conscious of too, is like, is your weed really actually that healthy for you? And these days, that's a big question. We don't exactly know. And it's good. There is organic strains coming out too. So, keep your eyes open for that, depending on what state you live in, of course.
Exactly. If you live in the state of confusion or the Democratic Socialist Republic of California, where I do.
Oh, my God.
The state regulators will tell you what you can use.
Yeah.
And
So just grow it yourself at that
yeah,
point.
so grow it yourself. And you can buy seeds from who?
Hey, up here in BC, you totally can. Come on, come up to
Oh,
us.
come on, America. Stop being so damn free and start doing the right thing. Oh, did I say that? We're recording this, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we are. I think it's important. You listeners, let us know if we're rambling too much about incoherentness. But I think it's important. I think a lot of people don't know a lot about these things, and I think especially with cannabis and the whole psychedelic realm of therapeutics, but also of recreational use. We're just opening up a beautiful new world of these things, but that comes with responsibility. It comes with information. My God, do I wish I had some of this information when I first started my mushroom journey and my MDMA. And
wasn't there.
No, you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes, right?
Definitely. I got plenty of those.
Mr. Mushroom Guy with his heroic dose sitting at the top of a tree.
Yes, I love that. And the Fantastic Fungi,
Yeah.
great film. And forget his name too. He was on the Joe Rogan show. He's amazing. What a wealth of knowledge he is too. And because again, that's now getting into mushrooms, not magic mushrooms. We're talking every fathomable mushroom on the planet, where he cured his mother's cancer with a particular strain of mushroom. I mean, every problem has a solution already existing on this planet and within somebody's mind. I'm convinced of that. And just because we love to focus on how effed we are, I think we're actually in good hands, as long as we can just come together and exchange information. And I guarantee you there's some geniuses out here who have a brilliant plan with how to help with climate change. There's technology that's going to help with that, but then there's also like the medicine that literally sprouts out of the ground that we can be using. So too many solutions. I think we're just ignoring them, or
well, we've survived this long
somehow
or another. I have a friend that likes to say the only reason we've survived is because it just takes a little bit, of grace to tip it over the edge. And that counteracts all the crazy. So somebody out there somewhere is doing what we need next, right now. They already know. And it's so great to have trusted that for, over 6,000 years, or maybe longer, 60,000 years in some estimations. I mean, the Egyptians did a great job way before we came along and tried to explain everything in terms of science and evidence. So, if you're listening to this show,
Bill and Chris are going off on a lot of tangents, but you know what? I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and sometimes those are my favorite episodes. So
exactly,
I'm happy to keep that. But for those of you listening, we can get back on track.
Well, I mean, the actual track here isn't that difficult, but we did that last time we got together. We were talking about Stranger Things.
Yes.
And how this amazing musical moment happens that's life-saving and affirming for one of the major characters in there, literally the shadow journey. Yeah. And I talked about Orpheus and all of that, and I got it wrong last time. It's Orpheus and Eurydice. It's not Orpheus and Persephone. Persephone is...
Oh, that's right.
She stays there, but it's Eurydice. And you were talking about how they were walking out of Hades, and Orpheus had to agree he wouldn't turn around to see if she was following. And they got almost all the way back, and he turns around and loses her forever. So just to offer that as a correction. But this crazy episode of Stranger Things, I read somewhere recently that Walking Up That Hill, which is the song that's involved here, has suddenly exploded.
Yeah, big time.
It's huge. And there's a whole bunch of memes out there, people going, well, what is my song, or, how come this song doesn't work for me? And so what we wanted to kind of explore today, if you're still with us at this point after all of our, and let's take another tangent just to make them, no, let's not.
This guy.
Is like, how do you create your own therapeutic experience with music? And we're going to stay with music, although, hey, feel free to throw in on whatever, psychedelic or other, parts of the experience you want to add. But if we keep it to just music, it should be pretty easy to do, because there ought to be no confusion about why the Duffer Brothers used music in this episode of Stranger Things to call the character Max back from the upside down to the real world. That should be obvious to everyone. And obviously in social media, it's not yet that obvious. So, we don't have to unpack how music works, but how do we use music to create a lifeline
Mm.
where we need one. And I want to stay focused on the lifeline because everybody knows how to use music for exercise and sleep and, all the other
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
And people are advancing that yourself, you're advancing that world when it comes to memory and things like that.
Mm.
But let's talk about like the hard things, suicide, death,
Yeah.
self-harm. How do you create a musical lifeline that can help you navigate through those journeys? And I think that's what our sort of objective here ought to be. Can I speak for you? That's what our objective is going to be.
Yeah. 100%. No, I'm with you 100%. And, I got to say the first thing that just popped into my mind as you were giving this introduction essentially for the listeners is that, I think a great place to start, and it's not the only place to start, and I know we're going to have some different ideas of where you can go with this, but think back in your earlier life, let's say childhood perhaps. And it's good to go back to childhood or teenagehood, let's say at the latest. Because as we know with trauma, usually the most difficult and the most long-lasting trauma are the ones from deep, deep, deep back into childhood, right? I've experienced some pretty rough traumas much, much later in my life, and I kind of worked through them way faster because I had the tools and I had the know-how and I had the experience. But the traumas that happen when we're children are a lot more deeper within us, and that's why they take that much more time to kind of work out. But then the good news is that we can also use that to our advantage. And if you've got a song from your childhood that you've used to escape perhaps some tough times, or you've used to celebrate, or you have a certain, if you can think of a certain song from your childhood, then I think that might be a good way to start, because you're not just listening to a great song, you're listening to a song with extreme nostalgia and perhaps that idea of like, well, it got me out of that before, it can get me out of that again. And so I have a couple of songs for myself because I don't know if there's always just that one song. And
I think I'd like to see a song for every reason, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think for the listeners too, it's like, we don't have to just focus in on that one. This is our only one song. No, I think we should anything that comes to mind is worth exploring, and what actually brought this into my mind was not music. It was the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, because that was my lifeline for so many moments throughout my entire life, because I've gone back in tough times and watched those films. But as anyone who knows those films, the music plays an integral role. And if I listen to just the soundtrack of Lord of the Rings, it does pretty much the exact same job. My teary eyes always come on at the same moments at the same time in those songs because of the same scenes that I know are happening in the film. But I think that would be a really great place to start. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Bill, but because there's so much weight with the things that have happened to us in our childhood, it's that much more potent and powerful as a mechanism to take you out of that really intense, perhaps it's suicidal, depression, rage maybe, or whatever intensity you're trying to, I don't want to say control, but have some sort of support.
Yeah, I like to use the word digest.
Good, yeah, great word.
I'm not sure if that's the best word, but it seems to be working for me right now. But the idea is, you take it in, you fully ingest it, and then it transforms. Food transforms into fuel within your system after you eat it. So I've kind of been going with that. And, I completely agree with you. The songs that are the most meaningful are the ones that, they're already in us. So being able to connect that with some purpose to do work, to do transformational work, is what we're talking about here. So as you're listening to this, I mean, it could be a song as annoyingly simple as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
100%.
It doesn't really matter what the content of the music is. And of course, it absolutely doesn't matter what other people think about it. This is you.
No.
So
please don't think of the most artistic choice. Get that out of your head.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't have to be. And there's no need to support it with, music theory or any of that other stuff. It's just whatever's in your heart.
Yeah.
That's what matters. And like Chris, so I grew up reading The Lord of the Rings. So I had no music other than what I could put with it from my clock radio, right?
Nice.
And I jury rigged my clock radio so that I could play cassette tapes through a better speaker. And I had, I think it was the Tchaikovsky First Piano Concerto.
Nice.
Which was most often in my head as I was reading The Hobbit or reading The Lord of the Rings. And so I had that on a slightly better speaker than the one that was in the cassette tape player,
A good
and I could
soundtrack.
listen that way. So it was a decent soundtrack, but it's certainly nothing like the soundtrack that got into the movie versions, which is incredibly rich and diverse, right? I couldn't really make any of it match up. But anyway, the song was in there. And that's really the first step, is like connecting with a song. And you'll have several, by this time in your life. If you've grown up in the world of today, there's going to be music in there, right? And very, very few instances where there isn't any, or where people just say, well, I don't like music. And you know what? That's totally cool, because there are other things that have the same effect. Sounds can have the same effect. Ambient sound of the wind, the forest, whatever, the waves. So whatever it is that's in there, gives you a great advantage already, because when you need it most, you don't necessarily have to get your headphones or turn on the stereo back in my day and put on the record and actually listen to it. Physiologically, our brains don't need to hear it in order to have the same effect. So as your brain remembers any song, fill in your song here, the physiological effects of that hit your system instantly. There's no waiting. It's just like there. So Lord of the Rings, I can think of Concerning Hobbits, right? That beautiful little whistle song. Or when the dwarves are all singing in Bilbo's house, right? This is from The Hobbit now. Dwarves, when they sing this amazing song, I get chills and I can hear it in my head, right?
Yeah.
Oh, great stuff. So step one is find the music, that you already have inside you, and you remember and have it create, if it's ASMR or some joy, you can see it on your face when you remember music. And you might want to try this like with a friend. Sit down with a friend and say, okay, now, friend, what's your music? What's the scariest music you know? And you'll be able to see on their face as they sort through and start to remember, because all of a sudden there'll be this look that comes over them. And it'll be obvious to you that they've got it, right? And obviously we're doing this audio right now, but if you ever saw this video, the visual, you could see that kind of thing happening, as we talk about this. You see the effect of it on somebody's face, which is pretty remarkable and proves the point that, yes, just remembering it is enough, right?
And you have, like you mentioned too, like you just mentioned Concerning Hobbits, with that
such a happy little sweet song, right?
Such a wonderful song, and like just that one alone, like that gets me. I feel the goosebumps, and then there's parts of that song where I immediately feel a bit of a frog in my throat. The throat swells a bit, a little teary eyed. Like it's almost every time I hear that. That's what it gives me. And for those listening, these are physiological signs that you might be on the right track, or that you're definitely on the right track. This is what you want to look for. So it's also, sure, how does it feel within your heart? But your body does all these different things to give you clues that this is having an effect on you.
Thanks for expanding that. I say in my heart, but I feel like you're saying it's more of a holistic thing.
Full body.
You get the emotions, you get the remembrances, your head is involved, right? You get the physical kind of tension or whatever that comes.
Yeah, you might see images in your mind, memories, almost movies playing in the brain. Who knows, right?
So let's just use Concerning Hobbits, a song people mostly kind of know, but because that one does it for you. So the next step would be to connect that with a purpose. So what's a great purpose for Concerning Hobbits? I mean, for Chris, not for anybody else in the world, but
sure. So for me, I've used it. I remember a great little example was I went on a tour with these DJs almost over a decade ago, and I was the videographer. So I was doing a tour vlog for these DJs over from Europe, and the culture, especially in that DJ kind of niche at the very least, and this is not all DJs, but certainly the ones that I was with were not the greatest people. And I kind of felt like I was wearing a mask all week. I in terms of like, I wasn't myself, and I had to almost basically pretend to be another person in order just to barely fit in. And I really did not enjoy being around those people. It felt not only ostracizing, but just filled me up with so many negative emotions, let's say. So I was feeling very, very homesick, and I was also feeling very, very out of place, and just, probably similar feelings to how a lot of people have had felt maybe at a new job that they really don't like, or in school, being bullied or things like that. Like, so we're talking feelings of not fitting in, feelings of missing a place of comfort, let's say.
Yeah.
And that's when I would put on that song and or watch the films, of course, but that song would immediately bring me back to a place of like warmth, love, comfort. Feels like a big hug, a musical hug, and it almost feels maternal in a sense. And yeah, I that's what I would use that song, specifically that song, would be to feel something of feeling at home, feeling safe. So that's how I would use that, and I think everyone can kind of extrapolate, you know, out of that, right?
Sure. Into whatever. I mean, it comes down to purpose. So
Right.
someone else may have a completely different purpose for that song, but for you, that sense of returning to belonging.
Yes.
And when I listen to Concerning Hobbits, there's a sort of there's a plaintive, sort of mournful longing for a simpler time
Yeah, there really is
in that
isn't there?
music. It's just that
Yeah.
simple melody. And for me, I think obviously we live in a world of complexity now, but when I use that song, that's a component for me too. It's like, I just wish things could be easier around here, right? You know what I mean? It's like that
Fully.
sense of, and the song totally supports that for me. It's like, it can be easier, Bill. Listen how easy this music is right now, right?
Yeah.
And you just get this overwhelming release. I get this overwhelming release when I use the music that way, which turns out to be quite similar in the way that Chris is using it too. I mean, you had a specific need at a specific moment, and that created a poignant connection. I haven't really had that specific of a need for it. But now that you reminded me about it, there are ways that I can slide that in. Like if I were in that place where I need to recall simplicity or just re-embody simplicity or something, I can feel it right now, just spin it in my head, and 1 or 2 notes, and I'm there with all the physiology that goes with it.
And that's the thing too. So for some people, I know it is a little harder for them to play the song in their mind. I think something I have to remind myself as a musician, it does come easier to us. We hear music all the time. It's kind of our language. We just, especially because I think we certainly were born with that. And for those, who don't always have that ability to necessarily just bring up a song in your mind and play it, luckily we have technology for that. So it's just a simple search on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, whatever you're using to stream, and just quickly look it up and throw it on and see how it feels. And then once you've listened to it, perhaps that's something you can hum along and put it into your brain. So if you can't pull it up initially, pull it up online, as we all can now, and then try to put it in the brain for when you're not in a position to be able to listen to it, perhaps. And maybe you're even in the middle of a conversation that you're really not feeling great about, and you really want some quick hit of whether it's simplicity or comfort, let's just say, and kind of loop that.
Yeah, just loop
it.
I used to listen to Zig Ziglar, and there were tapes. We actually had tapes. And early on in his sort of list of things to listen to, he would say, I expect you're going to listen to these tapes 16 times. And that stuck with me, way back in the 80s or something. Turns out now we've got neuroscience to put a new neural pathway into play, like to make it durable. You have to repeat the practice that got that pathway there 16 times.
Interesting.
And, I thought, oh my gosh, here's this number again. I don't know what the significance of the number doesn't matter, but the idea is with practice, anyone can do this, right? And if you haven't looked for Zig Ziglar in a while, look around, because that guy taught more people to be successful than, a whole lot of other folks out there who are peddling whatever it is that's been peddled since him. And a lot of it had to do with sheer dumb practice, right? Repetition over and over. And it's not about getting it right. That's not the point here. Introducing judgment. No, it's just the sheer repetition of it that makes it happen. You know that, and I know that. As musicians, we practice, and we do that so that we get it right. We learn how, we teach our fingers and stuff to do these things. But the mind is the one that's really got all the neuroscience going on. The muscle memory is there. Yeah, that's fine. But it's the direction, the traffic cop that's making it all fly needs 16 attempts at it before it becomes durable, and you can go back and rely on it. So, yeah, what you're saying is so right. Just listen, right? And it may be that this is a part of you that you haven't explored yet. And as you begin to explore it, you'll recognize things and the lights will come on and you'll go, oh my gosh, Bill and Chris aren't crazy. This is actually happening for me.
And you'll know because your body's going to tell you.
Your body's going to tell you, right? It's not us saying it. It's your own body saying yes. And you'll feel it. And, all of these things will come home to you in a very beautiful, and to use a $20 word, a heuristic way, right? So you're learning by experience because you have your own feedback. You have your own self-feedback mechanism. It says, right. It's like sticking your hand in the, don't do this. It's like sticking your hand in the fire, though. You go, oh, that's hot. I'm not going to do that, right? So you learn something heuristically. So the beautiful thing in Stranger Things is that this character is unable to do anything to intervene for themselves. And of course, it's a plot point, but it's a really important one to notice, because even though the song was in there, and if you're going to watch this for the first time, watch from the beginning again, and you'll see they're teasing the song. They're teasing running up that hill a couple of times, right? So that by the time that they use it in the scene, that it's a song that has meaning for the character, right? At some level, whether it's in there or not. The other interesting thing is that the character is reminded of the music. They're in a place where they literally have no agency. And it's their friends that find the song and put it in the Walkman and put the headphones on their head so that they can offer this lifeline.
You know what? I'm sorry, Bill. You reminded me of the movie Inception, where how they get them out of that dream state. Then they know that they're about to leave that level of reality in the dream. What do? They put the headphones on the characters and play that classical music.
It's not a new concept, right?
I just thought of that right now.
I'm so glad you reminded me of that, Chris.
Oh man, that's another good pop culture reference for music altering your state of consciousness and literally acting as, like, this is a very sophisticated supposed technology in this movie Inception of literally putting ideas into someone's deep subconscious through dream manipulation. And what are they doing at the end of the day to get out of that reality? Is it something fancy? No, it's literally putting music into the people's ears. And this is pop culture, sure, but we both know there's so much science behind this power of music. Like, it bypasses so much of the conscious mind, and of course interacts with the conscious mind, but it goes so deep into your subconscious and does so much that we can't even fathom, that it's clearly a mechanism that works for so many things. Almost, it's like infinite what you can really apply music to, and I'm curious to see how that evolves the more that we open up to these things, just as we're opening up to alternative healing through psychedelics and stuff. Music as well is just it's an incredibly potent tool, and we've only been using it for entertainment, at least in the last century or so. And so, like, I'm so excited to see where the heck that goes. I've experienced a bit of it with my one-on-one healing sessions now, where I'm literally having to on the spot write music for my client. And whatever their situation is that they're going through, that they want relief from, or they want insight and expansion from, whatever that is, I'm having to write the 432 hertz tune music so that we're going to, obviously resonate with the cells a bit more harmoniously, all that jazz. But then go in after I've brought them into a very deep state of relaxation, so their subconscious is more programmable, more open, right? Just like in Inception, they're in this deep, relaxed, like they've been in the movie, they're, I guess, drugged to get into that, like they're completely comatose, so they're in like a deep delta state. And when I'm doing this with the clients, I'm actually using the binaural beats to put them into those different states. So for example, the delta waves. And ironically, my last session last week, I introduced the delta waves for the first time, and she went deeper than she ever did. Coincidentally or not, we think we can both understand it's not a coincidence, because those things really do work. But again, it's the music I'm using it to influence them, and using it to using it for an outcome, a desired outcome. And what I think is really interesting about that is just that, like, we're getting into this, it's like functional music with a purpose. Like, you can do so much more than entertainment's wonderful, but you can do so much more than that with music. It's I think in who knows, even in the next 5, 10 years, but let alone the next couple decades, like what is music going to become? What do you think it's going to become? You know?
I feel at this moment like our appreciation of music as a healing tool is the analog of when surgery was bloodletting, you know?
Right.
We're just that new at it. And we know that it does some of this stuff. And, science has been able to offer us some support.
Tiny bit. Yeah.
Tiny bit, but there's so much further to go. And science is very concerned with healing. It's not like they don't care about that stuff, but Chris and I are here talking about consciousness. And in our paradigm, in the paradigm in which we're working, healing flows as a result of the transformation of consciousness. So we're not just out there, like play this music and the cancer cells will die. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's such a bonehead basic kind of application, right? What music do you choose? You don't even need music. You just need a particular frequency, right? It's so basic. And we're talking about the complexity of healing music, and choosing a pitch value that aligns more. These are all incredible things. And somewhere down the road from here, they'll all just be givens.
This will be basic.
And people know that. But the end of the day is that wonderful things like individuality are so much a part of this space anymore. We no longer have, aspirin that works well for 25 out of 100 people and calling that good. We have something that we really don't want to predict how well it can work. What we want to encourage is the engagement, right? So the willing engagement of your client, to come in and go that deep is a big component of this.
It's a huge part. I tell her this every week, where I'm just like, you are the reason that you're healing. I'm assisting to some degree here, and we know this through quantum mechanics, the classic double slit experiment, where it's all about the observer. It's all of our entire reality is based off of what is going on within you. It's got nothing to do with me or anybody else. Like, we are merely just reflections and really just echoes of one major consciousness in our respective realities. And my reality is very different than Bill's reality, than my parents' reality, than anyone else's reality. Everyone's reality is specifically tailored to the individual experiencing that reality. And so with quantum mechanics, we know from scientific experiments from back in like the bloody 40s, I think, is when it's not a new science at all. Yet it's not taught in school still, which is really interesting. But anyway,
is it though?
That's a whole other can of worms. But all it does is really prove that, basically, one, belief is everything. Belief truly is, and that's not a religious statement, although of course it's used in many religions, but it's not a religious statement. This is science. Belief is everything. If you perceive something to be some way, then that's kind of how it is. It doesn't even make it right or wrong. It just is that way for you and your reality. So with music, it goes back to, if we're going to start thinking of how to make a therapeutic practice for your music, the number one most important thing, even outside of the music, is you and your belief in it actually working. If you go into this exercise that we're, offering you guys, and don't believe for 1 second it's going to work, then that is exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
It won't work for you.
Yep.
And we know this through so many other things. Like, I even have family members who have gone through cancer and chemo, and the ones who have the classic cliche positive attitude always do better, always, because they believe they're going to do better.
Yeah.
And then they do better, and they have just the same odds, if not sometimes worse odds, than the people who are freaking out, stressing, rightfully so, obviously, but still, that is the thing, is that we have to realize it truly is mind over matter with everything. So it goes into this musical modality too. But since Bill and myself truly believe so deeply in music and the healing power of music, well, guess what? That's why it works for us so well. And of course, there's other things going on, vibrations, frequencies, everything like that are important. But number one most important thing, in my opinion, is you, the experiencer, and your belief of it working or not.
Intention is what I'd say is everything. Yeah. If you believe, that's great. So bring that to an experiment for yourself. Maybe it's sadness. I really do want to say, try this at home. It's very safe. The thing that isn't safe is if you happen to lose control and then go and, let's say you're working on self-harm, and and you're not getting the results that you want and you're still feeling a need to harm yourself, but call the hotline, just explain what's going on.
Yeah.
Don't take it to a physical harm place. That's not
Reach
the
out to
point.
somebody.
Reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a new national, I think it's called 988 here in about mid-July in the United States. You dial 988 and you'll be connected to a psychological response emergency team. So behavioral health, mental health, that kind of stuff. We'll have our own hotline for that. Don't know what it is in Canada, but it doesn't matter. What I'm advocating here is to try this. I mean, seriously, do something that's a little bit, out of your norm, but that's something that bugs you all the time. Like I'm always bugged when my neighbors make too much noise at night. How do I deal with that, right?
Right.
Maybe there's a music for that, and put it in your ears, and then find the compassion that you need, or whatever your way forward. I'm not going to put any expectations in this, but find the music that works, that lets you have the restful sleep that you need, in spite of whatever is going around you, and do that kind of thing. You don't have to go to the upside down, although the shadow journey
Inception
is one possible use for music like this,
Absolutely.
It's a big one.
Big time.
So, and look at how the world has set us up for success, Chris. Look, there was a time where music was expensive and you could only get it if you had equipment that could, reproduce it. And from the big Victrolas that you crank down to LPs and now CDs and, now we can get music streaming anywhere, and people kind of get it that music is a useful thing. And now we're taking it to the next level. Like as a society, we're taking it to the next level, whatever that might be, right?
And I think you hit on a really another experiment people can do, another really good takeaway, which is something that we can all relate to, especially in this current climate right now, which is like agitation, getting aggravated by something that is happening in your external world. Which
I meant to be gentle about that, but I meant to also include all the crazy.
Yeah,
right?
and we're surrounded by the crazy.
Yeah,
and I'm sure I'm part of the crazy too sometimes. But
me too. Yeah, definitely.
But the crazy is out there. We are consumed by it, especially in mass media. So we've got lots of reasons to be agitated, a lot of reasons to be annoyed, provoked, similar feelings of that nature. Great experiment to start to find music that works with that one. Because that's something that we're all going through that at one point or another, getting so pissed off about something, right?
Yeah.
And when that happens,
rage or anxiety or frustration or just
whatever it is, frustration is a great one.
Identifiable, thing, and say, okay, it's my frustration music, and you grab Metallica or whatever it is, that works.
Yeah. Find that and find the ones that like, and I think there's even several different categories of this too. We could really dig into this, which is like, there's the ones like, let's say Metallica or the dubstep that allows you to like feel that anger, feel that frustration, and like sometimes that's what you need.
Frustration with Democrats, frustration with Green
Party. Name a topic that divides people, which is basically everything right now.
Yeah.
Find a song for it, and find one that like. There's going to be one that like allows you to feel the emotions viscerally, and when I mean that, like again, a dubstep or a heavy rock like Metallica kind of song is going to allow you to feel that aggression in a very palpable, obvious way. But then find a contrasting piece for the same emotion that helps you come into a calmer state. Maybe after you get the aggression out with the Metallica, what is a song that can then bring you into a more zen, peace, loving state? And it's got to have a transition, of course. Maybe it is, who knows, experiment with this and let us know. Does it make sense to start off with the Metallica, get that aggression, get that anger, move that body, get the fist pumping, whatever you need to digest. And then what do you do after digest? Well, you relax. So then how do you relax? What's the music that can take you out of that? Maybe you're not in pure meditation yet, but maybe you're listening to a more chill electronica song or something, right? That maybe has still a bit more of a beat, but is very chill and soothing. And I have one song I know for myself that I've used a couple of times to really help myself calm from more of an anxiety standpoint. But I've used it actually sometimes on difficult psychedelic journeys where I need to come down from something really challenging, or things like that. There's actually festivals out there that have tents specifically for people that are having really rough trips, rough times, and they're playing the most zen music always, because it's like it helps basically. I have a great song by an electronica band called Boards of Canada. And it's beautiful because it starts off with like the water lapping in on the beach, and then this gorgeous acoustic guitar, and then a cool beat comes in. There's like birds chirping, and it it that works. That's like my concerning hobbits, my Lord of the Rings equivalent for something that gets me out of really extreme anxiety. And I've used it definitely many times before with great effect. And so see where you can. This is great because you just gave me these ideas, Bill. It's just like, yeah, like there's probably multiple types of music that work for the same emotion,
Oh,
and
sure,
then
yeah.
maybe it's a combo. Maybe you use like three songs to kind of get you from one place to another, and then down to that like calm, peaceful, love
Well,
based
I
state.
actually teach 4 songs, but um,
Oh, that's right.
I love that you concluded it this way because, yes, unlike in Stranger Things, where the character is bam, back and back in action, there is this necessary place of sort of integration, is the word that we like to use. So
Yes.
we'll take a psychedelic term and apply it back to music. So after giving yourself this opportunity to digest the stuff that's causing you a stomach ache, um, and eliminate that, then you're off to this place. Well, now what? I have a choice, and choosing to put yourself back into the effect you need. And if you're coming off a bad trip, that you're going to need a different kind of effect than if you're just like getting rid of road rage, and
Yeah.
you arrive at the office. So there's a different kind of a purpose there, and finding the music that fits in those kind of situations is good. And we're not talking about here about this giant playlist of 20 songs that's random. We're being very specific. Like there's the song that does the digesting for you, and then there's the song that brings you back to whatever the next thing is. And wouldn't it be nice if we all got to come back into a completely blissed out, relaxing state every time? But I know real life, it isn't quite like that, right?
Exactly.
So you might need to play Metallica, the guy that, cut you off in traffic, and then follow that up with, I don't know, 9 to 5 or whatever, some song that gets you into business mode again, ready to
Right.
meet the clients and take to the boss and whatever else.
Something inspirational maybe or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
energize, a different energy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
taking the energy from one and kind of redirecting. So you make this really good point. So I'll kind of put it all together as far as I've got here. So first of all, the song you love. Second, connected to the purpose for it.
Yeah.
Third, after the listening experience is taking another song you love that gets you back into the lane. Where you need to be for whatever. And the lane could be sleep, right? I'm good with that. Could be blissed out relaxation, or it could be more active. You may have to go back into a meeting or something, after recovering from being all pissed off before the break.
Yeah.
So there's like real world stuff on this. So I'm really curious to see how Stranger Things offers us the third bit, and they've done this very skillfully. If you've been watching Stranger Things, you'll know there's been music involved in a very beautiful way before that's literally solved the world's problems. Like it's kept the world from being, swallowed up by the upside down. But I'm very curious in this season how they're going to write it so that third aspect of music that you just brought in happens, right? So that there's that resolution that takes place. And clearly they're going to make us wait for that.
As they do with anything in those entertainment realms. I have a question too, Bill. For you with your business, Music Care, right? When you just mentioned that you usually use 4 songs. So
Yeah,
I'd love to hear, like, because this is really right up your alley with like a case study. You don't have to obviously mention anyone's name, but like an example of when you've given one of your clients like these songs to help them with a particular issue, and like the feedback that came back later. Like, do you have any examples of that? Like that
I
come up
do.
to you? Yeah.
So people who work with me generally learn how to do what I call a silver bullet playlist. And the silver bullet playlist mirrors the sort of stories that we all like. So once upon a time, the introduction, that's your song 1.
Okay.
There was a da 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 living in a baby land, that sort of sets the stage, and that's your song 2. So you get your introduction and you get sort of a build-up, right? And it builds up and it builds up and finally comes to a climax where, dragons are slayed or other exciting things happen in the story.
Right.
And that's like your third song. And then the 4th song is the one you mentioned about how you just sort of happily ever after. You let it come back down to a place where life returns to normal, right?
Conclusion. Or
the conclusion, yeah. So you kind of build up to this climax and then drop back down. And if you graph that, it makes a lovely curve. If you're sitting at a desk right now, grab a pencil, just make one of those bell curve kind of figures on your desk, and you'll see exactly how stories work. And good music works that way too. It's a story arc, and music has an arc like that. It starts out slow, it builds up, and it gets to a climax, and then it falls back. Not all music does that, but
Of
generally
course.
speaking, that therapeutic experience of telling your own emotional story with 4 songs in a playlist like that can be very beneficial. And I've had all kinds of response from that. I don't have to go into it now. I don't want to make this into some pitch or something. But
No, no, no.
that,
But I'm asking you. I'm genuinely curious. Like, what? Just a little snippet. Like, what have some people said? Like, what have they come back and said to you?
oh, sure. So one of the basic comments about this understanding that people know inside, it's like we all have that inside there. We love stories, but understanding how that applies to music is something that's like, oh gosh, I'd never understood that there can be an end to my sadness. You know, and by practicing the digestion, I guess, the digestion process. What a terrible name for it. I'm going to go with a better name.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Makes sense.
But like practicing with the 4 songs that you choose that take you through that arc is a way of being able to give yourself a holistic and a very sort of personal, but also widely understood experience that has a beginning and a middle and an end, with an intent. So often the intent is healing. Recovering from sadness is a difficult one. I found this same kind of thing for myself when I was doing suicide work. And the song that I chose has that same arc in it. And that's one of the things that helped me to digest the experience and choose to keep breathing. So it could be 1 song or it could be 4. I've had people say that psychedelic playlists that lasts 4 to 6 hours have that kind of effect on them as well. So there's a curated playlist that takes them through that journey. And oftentimes, I think that the psychedelic journey is one where you have to give up a lot of your agency, and the music can help guide that so that your experience is structured in a way that is subconsciously beneficial for you. But that's the same thing as using a 4-song Silver Bullet playlist, because you have the list, you have the music, but your subconsciousness takes over to do the digestion and transformation, if you will.
Right.
So, and this can happen at any level of understanding. You don't have to have an advanced music degree or anything. You just have to be able to feel and the depth of feeling that happens. But the other thing is that I wanted to say about that is oftentimes you'll get insight you didn't know you had,
Very true.
Something deep inside where you say, oh my gosh, I've been working on jealousy as a good one. I've been working on this jealousy playlist for a while. And all of a sudden, I've found a depth of trust in myself that I never had before.
Wow.
Just from allowing jealousy to speak, or allowing terror to speak, as sometimes we needed to in dreams. So this safe navigation, if you will, of these big feelings is something that music is amazing for, and often allows us in a way that we wouldn't normally do if we were like completely all left-brained about it.
Yeah. Oh, big time.
It really engages that intuition to help guide the digestion and the transformation of those feelings. So that's just a couple of quick examples.
And it made me think of music as it's like a sonic container for whatever you're going through. And
I love that you say that.
I've started using that when I've been playing at some psilocybin mushroom ceremonies where I'm playing for about 4 hours usually, even though of course mushrooms go a little bit longer, but the main ceremony and journey is about 4. And I'm honestly going pretty much nonstop throughout that. And and sometimes like the practitioners I've worked with are like, you can stop, Chris, like you don't have to go the whole time. I'm like, I know, but it feels almost wrong because I feel like I'm holding everyone sonically speaking, and the practitioners are guiding and doing all the beautiful things they're doing. But with the music, it's a sonic container, and the second it stops, I feel like the container's gone.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to stop. If there's other, of course, ways I can work around that, but that's not the point of the story. The point is that music creates a sonic, almost a physical and metaphysical sonic container for whatever journey you're going through emotionally. And it also creates it's a sonic container for anything. For you're having a party without music sucks, if you don't have any music playing at a party, it's like,
What is
what kind of
wrong?
what a terrible party is that? You know?
Yeah.
Why really is there a reason though specifically for that? Well, I think it's because again, it creates this container for socializing and for fun and for laughter and for love and all the other things that come out of that. It's the same even when you're getting intimate with a partner. Like a sex playlist is actually
Yes.
really fantastic. Like if you've got not good music playing for having some sexy times coming after a date or something, it can destroy the mood.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
versus if you've got a really like seductive, like sensual, nice, like some good R&B or some whatever, some like tribal cool, I don't know, so whatever music gets you going, because it's really dependent on the people, but that can just enhance the mood, essentially speaking, like astronomically, and all of a sudden you're having this amazing experience and you didn't exactly do anything extra other than just put on the music, and you're like, why is everything so awesome and raunchy right now? It's great. You're like, oh, it's because the music's kind of dictating that mood when you really tap into it. So I mean, we're talking, this is a container for name a thing, and music can work with it, right?
It's really cool. My wife and I each have this practice, and our individual practices are amazing. And then when we bring them together, all of a sudden, it's not just one and one making two. It's two squared. It's like
Wow.
there's an exponentialization of what you can do with this when you start to do it together.
Mm,
And that is a really cool unexplored realm for these things as well. Everybody knows what that feels like. You've ever been to a rave or been to a concert, everybody's singing along or whatever. That's it. That's like
yeah.
everybody has gotten that message
Yeah.
right there, right?
Yeah.
And I know we call those effects of music spiritual, but they're probably measurable at some point. They're definitely related to consciousness, and music just makes that happen. It's so
Well, the
cool,
the
man.
endorphins for sure would be,
Oh yeah,
you can
endorphins.
measure those for sure.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
could take everybody's dopamine and serotonin level. Have everybody wear like one of those
those
net helmets and
EEG
measure.
yeah.
Yeah, do all of that. And just, I mean, it would blow away the scientists. We wouldn't know how to interpret the data for a long time, but at least they have data to work with,
Still
right?
data. Yeah.
It's still data. So your science boys would be all happy about that, and 20 years from now they can tell us what was really going on.
Basically, get a supercomputer to get a quantum computer to figure it out for us. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
hey, I know we're long on this, but it would be fun to explore some of the intersection practices of music. And you mentioned a really good one, which is picking a playlist for sex, right?
yeah.
That is a
Yeah.
great exercise
Yeah.
because you get to know one another in a way that you wouldn't any other way over music.
It's
Right?
powerful.
It's
It's
really
so
powerful.
powerful. It's like I have marveled, and it's something I've spent some time with over the years, because I really did put energy into curating, and it depended on my partner at the
Yeah,
time
of
too.
course, right?
Obviously.
It's a collaborative experience
Well, it is in every sense, right?
in every sense, and
In
why
every
not?
sense. But it is it's something that I think most people don't. Always. I think people do, but most of the time it's not taken too much into consideration. And for those listening, that's a very fun experiment that you can also, to maybe counteract some of the perhaps challenges or heaviness that you might encounter on these other experiments we've talked about, getting out of rage, getting out of these, let's call them negative emotions for lack of a
Yeah,
better term.
yeah,
Which I don't believe in that, because all of the emotions we experience are very, very important, and they're all here to give us information at the end of the day. But this could be a very fun one, is a sex playlist. Go for it. Knock yourself out. Have some fun with it, but also tap into it and see how the mood is enhanced before and after.
sure, yeah, and
So
how
really,
specific songs. I mean, you could test specific
yes,
songs,
yeah,
and if you really want to get like scientific with this, try to do the 4-song Silver Bullet playlist. You won't need 4 songs. You might need 40 or whatever, depending on how long it takes you to get there. But
right,
the idea of Once Upon a Time, followed by the build, followed by the and then something amazing happens, and then there's a release.
yeah.
That same story arc.
That sounds like a great sexual experience too,
Right.
right? I mean, it's this story arc, it's the hero's journey. It's like it's the as above, so below. It explains almost every aspect of our reality. Really goes in that arc that you talked about, that bell curve. It's fascinating.
It is totally fascinating. And once you start to see that curve, you'll see that curve everywhere.
Yeah,
You know,
everywhere.
and in stock market graphs, you'll see the human form. You'll see it like just in all these places, and you realize
Yeah.
how fundamental that particular experience is to human being.
It's
It's
reality. It's crazy.
really amazing. It's
It's
even in
crazy.
the Big Bang. You'll love that. And the
Is it?
torus, yeah, the torus, the rotation of the torus, whatever, all of this stuff, it's all at the motion of the galaxies. If you
Oh my
graph it
God.
that way, you get this giant explosion followed by a very rapid collapse.
Right.
So so look out, people.
Oh man.
Train's coming.
This is why we call the podcast Music, Healing, and Consciousness.
Yes.
Because we really do goes deep sometimes. I love it.
Oh man,
I
how are we
love
going to
it.
get out of this one? No, we haven't really finished, but
Well, I think we got
it's
some
been a
good.
while,
We
so
got some assignments. We got some good assignments
we
for
got some assignments.
people, or call it whatever, maybe a more fun term. Some things to go play with, some things to
Oh,
experiment with,
definitely. Yep.
and please let us know how this goes for you. So, Bill, what did we talk about specifically? We got the
So
4 song
yeah, find a song you
Silver
love.
Bullet.
Connect that with a purpose. Um, Learn it if you haven't learned it yet. If it's not in there already, you can do that, and then release. Right. So you can do that with one song or a whole bunch of them. I happen to like 4 just because it's simple to teach, but in real world terms, sometimes it takes longer than 4 songs, unless like I have a 4-song playlist that lasts an hour and a half. But that's me.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
song
Find what
takes
works for
45
you.
minutes. And so whatever works for you, it's not about duration or time. It's about what gets into you, right? And makes it work. And then do that with your partner and play around with that and see how it
Have some
happens.
fun. Have some
Right?
fun with
Have
that,
some fun.
and really let your body be a huge gauge
Yes,
for how
well
this
said.
works. So when you're trying to find the song that works for any of these things we talked about that you want to help have some relief or some support with, let your body be the deciding factor. If nothing's happening, it's probably not the right one.
Change the song.
If any response is happening, start to take notice to it. Maybe it's not the right response, but then take note of that response, and maybe it's going to be good song for a different purpose, not the one you're initially looking at it, but then log that away in the archives for something else later. Because I'm telling you, if your body responds, there's something going on.
And you
Something's
know what?
happening.
If you're feeling hurt or worried or concerned as you're doing this process, then stop. There's no need to push yourself beyond where your body wants to go.
No.
It's not like holding your breath like Wim Hof for 10 minutes or whatever. If you can't hold your breath for 10 minutes, there's no shame in not breathing that way. So feel the same for music, and if a song is really working with you and you're feeling it and you're okay with the emotions that you're feeling, great. But the moment they get too much, all you have to do is turn off the music and then put on something else. You like convert yourself into some other thing and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, or turn off music altogether, go into nature, and
Go to nature, be
listen
silent.
listen to the outdoors or something like that.
Yeah.
Anything.
Or listen to this podcast again. This will help your beautiful transformational journey just come to an immediate halt.
Right?
Just be listening to us talking here.
Talking about psilocybin and everything else on the planet, basically. I mean, to be honest, though, I sometimes I love listening to podcasts as a therapeutic background. Sometimes I'm not even fully paying attention to it, but it's just nice to have a voice in the
It's like,
background.
what's
It's
that song,
weirdly
Mumbles, where it's just music, right? But you don't have to hear the words.
Yeah, it's soothing. It's soothing. Like it's whatever, as some of my favorite yoga practitioners say, it's like make the practice work for you.
Yeah, that's it. That's right.
We're giving you some suggestions. It's always up to you, and you know better than anybody what works best for you. We are not the gurus. You are the guru always, no matter who's giving you information. Always check in with yourself and how you feel about it, and then go from there, because ultimately you are always the best judge of what works best for you.
Yes. And Chris and I totally trust you to know that. And you're not alone. If you ever need to, we're here for you. There's lots of resources. So reach out, if you're having a terrible psychedelic trip, find Fireside. They're amazing. 24/7 people standing by, you can chat or talk to. So isn't it great, the world that we're in right now?
I didn't even know that, Bill. I mean, that's awesome. See that every time I hear things like that, I know we're moving in a good direction, despite what other people and major institutions might be saying.
Yeah, despite all the anxiety, we need to listen to music to resolve.
Right? I know. Despite everything, I swear to God, we're moving in a good direction. I swear.
Yeah. It feels that way, my friend. It really does. It really does.
These are just the growing pains for us right now. That's all.
And they're survivable. I mean, we're going to make it, right?
We are. Absolutely.
So should we wrap it up, or
let's wrap it up? No, I think that's good. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And like we've been saying, make this practice work for you, and have fun with it. And again, let us know what goes on for you. And if there's any other questions or things you want us to talk about, please let us know in whatever way you can, depending on what platform you're listening to this on. But we always have our contact information in the show notes, so go ahead and reach out to Bill or myself. And we'd love to hear from you. And if you have suggestions for future topics, that's a great thing that we would love to hear as well from you. So thank you again. And I don't know if you have anything there, Bill.
No, just to join Chris and thanks. This is such an incredible thing to be able to talk to you all, and for you to listen this long to us talking about what we do. And we're here. We are here for you. So find us if you need us. Find other resources if they help. Just don't ever stop. Just keep on doing this music thing. It's a great journey, man. Isn't it, though?
It's the best journey. It's my favorite one. So
I'll stay on
it. Me too.
Thank you for listening in on our conversation, and for taking time to show your appreciation with a like, share, or subscribe. Discussions of Music, Healing, and Consciousness is a practice of spontaneity, and we welcome your comments, ideas, and questions. There are ways to connect with us in the show notes, so let us hear from you. Until next time, this is Bill Paratzman along with Chris Noble wishing you great musical health. Samara Huchaya.